This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Baruchim Habayim, welcome everyone. This is our final shiur before the great Yom Tif of Purim. Haba Aleinu L'Taiva. Baruchim Habayim to the Koil Agar de Pirka B'chol Mekayimai Shehem. We have a very special shiur today on Inyane Megillah and Inyane Purim, and let me take the opportunity to wish everybody a Freilichen Purim. Haba Aleinu L'Taiva.
Please mute your phones. There's a feedback echo.
Okay, I'm muting everybody. Okay. So this is our last year before Purim. I want to take this opportunity to wish you a Freilichen Purim, and we want to remind you, if you have not yet got your concealed and revealed, there is still time to get it. You could order it from artscroll.com, and there are different promo codes. You could try radio. There was an interview this morning about it on JM and the AM. And send it to your friends, to your relatives, to your enemies. Send it to anyone you know, people you don't know, people you want to know, people you don't want to know. If you did not yet get your Magid Rakia on Purim, that's available at our site, rabbidg.com. And if you got all of the above, then surprise your friend by getting the Magid Rakia on Pesach, because you could bring to your friend on Purim. He said, I already have the Sefer. No, this is for Pesach. You have to start preparing for Pesach, Shloishim Yom Koydem Achag. If anybody would like to keep the momentum going and be mishtatef in upcoming publications, the upcoming publications, Be'ezus Hashem, in Lashon HaKodesh, B'siyata D'Shmaya will be Sefer Shemois, and in English will be B'siyata D'Shmaya, Haggadah Shel Pesach, next year Pesach, with Art Scroll. So if anybody wants to be mishtatef in any upcoming publications, many have found that their appreciation for the Yom Tovim have been somewhat enhanced. Also, if anybody wants to be mishtatef in the compilation of the Chidushim of the Tzaddik V'Ranana and Lashon HaKodesh, the Ben La'ashri, please let us know. Okay, we begin with a very well-known Gemara. This is interesting, not only a Gemara, but it's also a Mishnah and Pirkei Avos. And the Gemara tells us, it says in Avos, Amar Rabbi Lezer, Amar Rabbi Chanina, Kala Oimer Davar B'Shem Amrai, anyone who says something over in the name of the one who said it, Mevi Geula La'olam, will bring redemption to the world. Shenemar V'atoimer Esther LaMelech B'Shem Mordechai. And Esther told the king in the name of Mordechai. Esther didn't just say, hey, king, somebody wants to kill you. Esther made sure to tell Achashverosh that she heard it from Mordechai, and we know that was the beginning of the redemption, because when Achashverosh could not sleep, remember we learned last week that the Malach Gabriel came and smacked Achashverosh's head against the wall 366 times. He couldn't sleep, and he remembered he had to reward Mordechai, and the rest is history. So Va'omer Davar B'Shem Amrei, this is not only Gemara and Megillah, it's also Mishnah and Avos. The Mishnah says, Parak Vav, Mishnah Vav, Va'omer Davar B'Shem Amrei, Halamadata, Kala Omer Davar B'Shem Amrei, Mevi Geula La'olam. And the question that the Ben Yehoyada asks is, it's a nice thing to quote where you heard something from, but we have to understand what is the reason why it is so important to say something over from where you heard it. Why is it that it brings Geula La'olam? Why is this such an important feature? And I guess if I'm giving a shiur about the importance of saying something over B'Shem Amrei, I guess I got to do it myself. So I want to thank Rabbi Yaakov Ganjian, who gave me a CD, I don't know, about 5, 6, 7 years ago, from Rabbi Eli Mansour. And the idea of this shiur came from something I heard on that shiur about this question, and he also quoted the Vilna Gaon, as well as another comment of the Ben Yehoyada, and based on that came this shiur that we're going to learn today. The Gemara tells us in Masechta Megillah Daf Yud Aleph various pesachim, various intros and prefaces that the Amoraim began their discussion about Megillas Esther with, and the discussion that Rabbi Lezer began with was the pasuk Be'atzaltayim Yimach Hamakara. With laziness, the roof caves in. Uveshiflas Yadayim Yidloif Habayis. And with lowering the hands, the house sags. In other words, here you have a guy, he's a little bit lazy. He says, okay, I know there's a little crack in the roof, and maybe there's a little moisture, but I'll get to it after tax season, after Passover, after Shavuot, after the summer, after the high holidays, after Hanukkah, after the yahrzeit of Rabbi Shaila of Karastir. People push off, they push off, they push off, and eventually the whole house caves in. So, but Rabbi Lezer darshan the pasuk, B'shvil atzlus shahaya lahem liYisrael, because of the laziness that the Jewish people had, shalai asku b'Torah, that they were not oisik in Torah, nasa soinoi shal HaKadosh Baruch Hu mach, the enemy of God, so to speak, became weak. That's a euphemism. That means Rebbeinu Shalom himself acted as if he's weak. Ein mach ela ani. Mach refers to poverty. Shenemar v'yemachu meyarkecha. It says if somebody is too poor to give their value. Ve'ein mekara ela HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shenemar ha'mekara v'amayim ali Yosef. So basically, don't read the pasuk because of laziness, the roof caves in. Instead, read the pasuk because of the laziness that the Jewish people displayed in studying Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu acted as if he was poor. Now this is a very interesting expression, because we have many expressions, we have many phraseologies, we have many terms for poverty. One could be an ani, an evyon, a dal, a rush. But the question is, why specifically, when it comes to not studying Torah, do we refer to someone who is lazy in Torah as mach? Say dal, rush, ani, evyon. Furthermore, the very interesting phenomenon. The Gemara asks in Chulin, Haman min ha-Torah minayin. Where is there a remez to Haman in the Torah? Hamin ha'etz. The remez is in the sin of the forbidden fruit. Now, that's not the only commonality that we find between Haman and the snake. But the Medrash tells us there are 4 people that began their statement with the word af, and they were destroyed. The Nachash said, af ki amar Elokim, lo yisaychu. Nachash began his discussion with the word af. The Sar ha'oifim, the baker, said, af ani bachaloimi. Kairach said, af lo yel eretz. Haman said, af lo heviya. So we know that God's wrath is referred to as af. His fierce wrath is referred to as af. Why is that? Why is the expression for Hashem's anger referred to as af? Now I'm going to do a little v'nahapechu. You thought today's share was going to be on the Megillah. You're right. But you didn't realize which Megillah. You ready? You figured today Glatstein's going to be laning all kinds of psukim from Megillas Esther. Yeah, I'm going to be laning a lot of psukim from the Megillah, but not Megillas Esther. L'koil ziman v'yes l'chol chayfetz tachas hashamayim eis la'ledes v'yes la'mus eis la'tas v'yes la'akar natua eis la'haroig v'yes l'rpoi eis l'froitz v'yes l'vnais eis l'vkais v'yes l'schaik eis s'foid v'yes r'kait. Basically, Shlomo HaMelech gives us 28 zmanim in life. There's a time to give birth, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, a time to kill, a time to heal, a time to breach, a time to build, a time to eulogize, a time to dance, a time to be silent and a time to speak. You know, the story goes that the Malbim once spoke after a Reform rabbi, and the Malbim said, you know, I never understood a pasuk in Koheles. There are these 28 times, and all these the various extremes have a happy medium. There's a time to love and a time to hate, and there's something in between. There's indifference, there's a time to eulogize and a time to dance, and then there's just apathy. But I never understood what is there in between silence and speaking. There's a time to be silent and a time to speak. But now after hearing you, Rabbi, I now understand the happy medium between silence and speech. Now I realize you could speak without saying anything. So that was the insight that the Malbim gained at that particular event. Be it as it may, the Vilna Gaon picks up on the fact that all these 28 times are preceded with the letter Lamed. Eis la ledes v'eis la mus, eis la tas v'eis la karnatua, eis la lamed, 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 lamed. With two exceptions. Eis sifaid v'eis rekaid, a time to eulogize and a time to dance. What happened to the Lamed? So this is a subject that is discussed extensively in the writings of the Gra and in many other Sfarim. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz once said homiletically at the funeral of Reb Tzalel Zolti that, there are times where not only is it a time to eulogize, but it's so mournful that the time itself eulogizes. Eis Sefayid, time eulogizes, not a time to... And there are joyous occasions in life where it seems like the very time itself is jubilant. Not only is it a time for jubilance, but time itself seems to be jubilant. But again, it requires our study. Why is the Lamed missing? Eis Sefaid ve'eis Rakaid. Another question you could ask. In Tehillim, there seems to be a 29th time that Shlomo HaMelech forgot to discuss. Eis la'asois la'Hashem heiferu Torasecha. There are times to act for God, and you need to break the Torah. We know that the reason why Rebbe was able to write the Torah Sheba'al Peh, even though technically you're not allowed to record the oral law, is because Rebbe darshan the pasuk Eis la'asois la'Hashem heiferu Torasecha, time to do for God and break the Torah. So why isn't that a 29th time? Eis lachat la'asois la'Hashem heiferu Torasecha. What happened to that? Asks the Ashar L'Shloimei Rav Zev Hoberman. Another interesting thing is in Parshas Nitzavim. We're talking about missing lameds. Now let's talk about big lameds. Vayiteshem Adonai me'alad mosam bi'af uvchema v'ketzef gadoil vayashlichem l'eretz acheres kayem hazeh vayashlichem, the big lamed. Why a big lamed? What does lamed mean even? Why sometimes is it missing and sometimes is it big? Here's another missing lamed. In Parshas Bamidbar, we count all the various shvatim. Livnei Ruvain, Livnei Shimon, Livnei Yehuda, Livnei Yisachar. And when it comes to Naphtali, Bnei Naphtali, what happened to the Lamed? Why isn't it Livnei Naphtali? Says the Baal HaTurim, I'll tell you why. By all the other Shvatim it says Livnei, because Shevet Naphtali, they had more girls than boys. And therefore by the bracha of Naphtali, there's a remez to Isha, Naphtali Ayala Shlucha Hanoisein. Ayala Shlucha Hanoisein is Rashi Tevas Isha. Therefore, in Parshas Pinchas, okay, so by Naphtali they had more girls than boys, so there's no Lamed. And that's why in Parshas Pinchas, where all the boys between 20 and 60 died out, so there it says B'nei by all the Shvatim and not Livnei. So very interesting Baal HaTurim. So since Naphtali had more girls than boys, there's no Lamed. By all the other Shvatim, they had more boys than girls, there is a Lamed. Later on in Pinchas, when the boys died out, so there's no Lamed by any of the Shvatim. What does the letter Lamed have to do with boys? Why do boys get a Lamed? So we have to try to discover the meaning of the letter Lamed, and why then it is not mentioned in the context of Eis Sefoid ve'eis Rakaid, why it's not mentioned by the Bnei Naphtali, and why there's a big Lamed in the word Vayashlichem. Says the Vilna Gaon. Says the Gaon that the Gemara tells us in many places, including in Ksubas Daf Yud Zayin, Mevatlin Talmud Torah Lohitzas Hames Lachnasas Kala. That there are certain activities in life that are so important that we're Mevatel Torah for Hoitzas Hames and for Hachnasas Kala. We know if a person is carrying out a dead body, they are exempt from Talmud Torah. If somebody is causing a bride to rejoice, they are exempt from Hachnasas Kala. So, says the Gaon, the letter Lamed refers to Limud, learning. Lamed refers to Limud HaTorah. And therefore, we know there are some times in life where you're pater from Limud HaTorah, namely Hachnasas Kala and Levayas Hames. Therefore, in Koyeles, it's not Ace Lispoid V'Ace Lirkoid, a time Lamed eulogize, a time Lamed to rejoice, because they refer to the mitzvahs of Hoitzas Hames and Hachnasas Kala, and on those occasions you're exempt from Talmud Torah, and therefore there's no Lamed in reference to those particular mitzvahs, says the Vilna Gaon and the Koil Eliyahu. The Kli Yakar and the Eilos Ephraim, he also brings this idea that Levayas Hames is so important that we're Mevatel Talmud Torah for Levayas Hames and for Hachnasas Kala. And the remez, of course, is, it says Eis Sefoid ve'Eis Rikoid with a missing a Lamed. Why? To tell you that you're Mevatel Torah for Hachnasas Kala and Levayas Hames. And this idea is already found in the Rishonim, the Avudraham, that the letter Lamed is Limud. Mevatlin halimud al shem shechasim mishnayim lamed. The reason there's no lamed is to teach we're mevatel Torah for Hachnasas Kala and Levayas Hames. By the way, the Kli Yakar also says a possibility that for 30 days we give a chasan and kala for simcha, and for their 30 days of avelos. So the missing lamed indicates that for 30 days they have that status, and that's when they are sefoid and rekoid for. But be it as it may, by the way, the Roikeach, another Rishon, also brings this idea that the reason why there's no lamed by sefoid and rekoid is because mevatlen Talmud Torah l'haitzas hames u lahachnasas kala. Comes the Gra, and the Gra asks in a footnote, well, if that's the case, what happened here? If that's the case, if the reason there's no lamed is because we're mevatlen Talmud Torah for these two mitzvahs, so, one second. Here we go. If the reason why there's no lamed is because mevatlen Talmud Torah for these two mitzvahs, then there's another mitzvah that should not have a lamed, because it says v'es likraya, a time to tear, a time to rise kriya. Well, we know at the time of kriya, also that's part of Hoitzas Hames. So then you're also pater from Talmud Torah. So there too, it should say Eis Keraya. But why does it say Eis Likraya? Aren't you pater from Talmud Torah when you're helping at a time that you're servicing a mace, you're helping someone rise Kriya? So the Gemara says, well, there's another time to tear Kriya. And that is if you hear somebody be Mekalel the Shem Hashem. So, but at that time, you're not pater from Talmud Torah. So therefore, there's a lamed by Eis Likraya, because Eis L'Kraya doesn't only refer to tearing Kriya for Haitzas Hames, but could also refer to tearing Kriya for Chas v'Shalom, hearing someone be Mavarech as Hashem. Now in the Sefer Halali Nafshi of Reb Kuperman, he quotes the Rosh Hashiva of Telz, Rav David Goldberg, who points out, and really the Gra himself points this out, that it's not correct that the only two Zmanim that there's no Lamed is Eis Sefoid ve'Eis Rekoid. There are another 3 missing Lameds. Eis Lahashlich Avonim v'Eis Kinois Avonim. It should say v'Eis Lichnois Avonim. And what about Eis lehoi v'eis lisnoi, eis milchama v'eis shalom. It should say eis limilchama v'eis lishalom. So we have to get out on the table that there are actually 5 instances where there's no lamid by the zmanim in koheles. Eis sefoid ve'eis rekoid, eis kenois avonim, eis milchama, and eis shalom. So Rav David Goldberg answers that there are some times that it's appropriate not to have... Oh, what's going on here? One second, let me get you back to Maramakoimos. Huh? 1 second, sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, the Marmakomish were just disappeared. So let me try to get them up. Okay. Okay, do you see the Marmakoimos? Okay. So David Goldberg says that the Gemara tells us that Milchama is HaKadosh Baruch Hu wages, and Shalom HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes. So therefore, it's not a time, there are no times for it, it's not within our capacity, and perhaps that's why it does not say Lamid by Shalom and Milchama. Reb Chaim Kanievsky says the reason it doesn't say Lamed is because Shalom is not Is, it's always a time for Shalom. It's not Is li Shalom, they're not specific times for Shalom. Shalom is always, and war, there are no designated times for war, it's sort of something that just happens spontaneously. But regarding Kenois Avanim, that's also a Zman that is not, doesn't say the letter Lamed. And for these 5 times, the Gra himself addresses. And the Gra in the Shnois Eliyahu, it's also brought in the Chidushe Ubiure Hagra on Masechta Brachos. The Gra says an amazing approach. The Gra is going on the end of Masechta Brachos, that they were masakin, that Chazal were masakin, that you should greet your friend with the name of Hashem, with Shalom. And this was a takana of the Anshe Knesset Gdoila and Bayaz. It was a takana of, Bayaz. V'hine hei Bayaz ba'ami beis lechem v'yomer lakoitzurim Hashem imachem v'yomer ulai v'arechecha Hashem. So this was a takana of Bayaz. And from where did they derive that you should greet your friend with the name of Hashem? After all, how could you just say Hashem's name in vain? They derived it from the pasuk Eis lasois lashem hefero tarasecha, that there are certain times that it's worthwhile to sort of bend the rules to uphold the Torah. Says the Gra in the Shnois Eliyahu, the same idea that the letter Lamed represents Limud HaTorah, and that is why the letter Lamed does not appear in 5 instances in the 28 Zmanim in Koheles. The Gra says a little bit differently than he says in the Kol Eliyahu. In the Kol Eliyahu, he says that when somebody is taking out a mess, or somebody is causing the Kala to rejoice, they're patur from Talmud Torah. And here in Shnois Eliyahu, the Gra says that a Avel, Nishtain Gedach, someone Misha Meisai Muta Lefanav, someone who has a mess in front of them, he's patur from Torah. Or a Chassan himself is patur from Torah. So be'ez sefoid, be'ez rekoid, there's no lamed, you're patur from Talmud Torah. Now, what about eis kenois avonim? Why not lichnois avonim? So he says, because someone who is kinois avanim, Chazal tell us, someone who is a merchant, who is immersed in his travel for work, will not have the time to be able to become a Talmid Chacham. The Torah is loy nimtza b'tagorim uv'sachronim or b'misha noisim me'ever layam achar avonim toivos. Somebody who's going after the gold rush will not become a Talmid Chacham. So by kinois avonim, there's no lamed. And furthermore, there's no lamed by Milchama. Remember the Gemara in the beginning of Masechta Megillah? The Gemara says the Malach came to Yehoshua. He said, I understand this morning you weren't learning because during Milchama you can't learn. But Emesh v'taltem in Torah. Why did you not learn last night? Why weren't you learning in the nighttime? You should have been learning then. One second. You should have been learning in the nighttime. And the Gemara says in Megillah Daf Gimel, Amar Lai Emesh Bataltem Tamid Shabein Arbayim, V'achshav Bataltem Talmid Torah. Now you're bata from Torah. So we see at a time of Milchama, you're pater from Talmid Torah. And what about at a time of Shalom? Well, we know that in order to preserve Shalom, you're allowed to break the Torah. Eis lasis Hashem heiferu Torah secha. So for the sake of Shalom, you could be mevatel the lamed. You could be mevatel Torah. So Eis Shalom. Why is there no lamed? Because the Eis Shalom, it is mutter to be mefer the Torah. It's mutter to nullify the Torah. The Sefer Asher L'Shlomo says, well, this would answer why Shlomo HaMelech did not count the 29th time, namely, the Eis Laslois Lashem Hefiru Tarasecha, because he already counted it. Eis Shalom is a reference to for the sake of peace, you are allowed to be Mavatel the Torah. So from all of the above, Rabbi said, we learn out that the letter Lamed is the letter of Limud, the letter of Talmud Torah. The Lamed stands for Talmud Torah. Now, we know throughout Chazal, the wrath of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is called Af. Ki yagarti mipnei ha'af v'hachema. I was afraid because of the Af and the fierce wrath. And the Gemara tells us about the ability of tzedakah and tzedakah b'seiser to subdue the Af and the Chema of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That these are two forces of din, Af and Chema. Or in Nitzavim we say, V'yameru kol hagoyim al me'asa Hashem kachar. It says, Me'echari ha'af hagadol. What is this Af? And the answer is the Af, V'yameru al asher azu es bris Hashem lekei avoisam. Or in Tehillim we have, Al taster panecha mimeni, Al tat bi'af avdecha. We have this concept of the Af of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What exactly is this Af? In the Sefer Eretz HaChaim of Rabbi Avram Chaim HaKoyen, the author of Tor Barekes, who the Tor Barekes has absolutely my favorite chidush on Purim. We said it last night, we said it very often, that the light of Megillas Esther is greater than the light of the Torah. That comes from the Talmidei HaArizal, the Tor Barekes. He also wrote a Parsha on Tehillim. And he says originally the Aleph Beis, the letter Aleph was written Aleph Pei, without a Lamed. But Hashem saw that the world cannot exist with Af. So Hashem took the letter Lamed and He divided between the Aleph and the Pei. This is the Chidush of Rabbi Avram Chaim HaKoyen. Comes the Holy Chidah! Mav Rabbi say, you know what today is? Today is Yud Aleph Adar Beis, the yard side of the Chidah. One of my all-time favorite Gedolim. So you say, what do you mean? But Ashkenazim, they commemorate a yard side in Adar Aleph. Yeah, but sorry, pal, the Chidah was a Sephardi. So I don't know if you could commemorate it. I think if he's a Sephardi, you commemorate his yard side today. But anyway, says the Chidah in the Sefer Pnei David on Nitzavim. The Umayis Ha'olam, they wonder, what is Hashem's anger? Why is Hashem so angry? I'm having hard to... Okay, 1 second. I'm just trying to fix the screen here. It's okay. The Umayis Ha'olam wonder, what he elicited this great anger from HaKadosh Baruch Hu? And the answer is, the letters of the Aleph Beis used to be Aleph Pei, but Hashem stuck in the Lamed for Limud to be Mavatel, his Af. But V'amru, when we're not learning Torah, V'amru al asher azvu es bris Hashem elikei avoisam. When we don't learn Torah, the Lamed goes away. And when the Lamed goes away, the Aleph becomes Af. And then we're in big trouble. So if you want to know, says the Chidah, why ever we see the Af of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's always because we removed the limud, the lamed. And when you remove the limud, you take the lamed out of Aleph Pei, you're left with Af. Says the Holy Chidah on his Yom Hilula. This is the meaning of Vayash Lichem, Vayiteshem Hashem Mei Alad Mosam Be'af, Uvechema, Uveketzav Gadol. Why? Vayash Lichem, because of the big Lamed. Lamed is Limud HaTorah. Without Limud HaTorah, there's Af and Chema and Ketzav Gadol. If you see a world that there's Milchama and Af and Chema and Ketzav Gadol, the main reason is because of the big Lamed. We're missing the Lamed. Today, Reb Chaim Kanievsky, Reb Gershon Edelstein, Zol Gesundsein, they said at a time like this, we all have to be mechazek and limud HaTorah. How do we know limud HaTorah? That's our Messiah. When there's af in the world, it's because of the missing lamed. That's the big lamed. Now, God, there are three powers of Midas Hadin. There's mashches, there's af, there's chema, me'ach, mem aleph ches, mashches, af, and chema, and they come from avoin. That's what we say, yechaper avoin, and therefore there should not be a mashches, and there should not be ap, and there should not be chema. Mem aleph ches. We're just going to mute you, because it's not necessary to hear the ruffling of papers. Okay, that's why, at the end of the meal, and we're conscious of the Midas Hadin. So if you don't have a Dvar Torah to say, you say Mayim Achroinim Choiva Rosh Tevois Mem Aleph Ches Mashches Af and Chema. You ever see the Ben Ish Chai says if you don't have a Dvar Torah and you want a quick Dvar Torah, the Dvar Torah is Mayim Achroinim Choiva. Contrary to all those people that they think that there's no more Melech Sedoimis and they don't have to wash Mayim Achroinim. Halacha has already been paskined by the Mishnah Brura. Chazon Ish says that the Mishnah Brura, whatever it says in the Mishnah Brura, is like it emanated from the Lishkas Hagazos. The Shulchan Aruch, the Magen Avram, and the Mishnah Brura is the final word on halacha, says the Chazon Ish. So if you don't have a Dvar Torah, you say Mayim Achroinim Choiva. The final waters are obligatory. And that stands for everyone could just mute because we're hearing background noise. Mayim Achroinim Choiva, Mem Aleph Ches. And that's why when they went to fight Amalek, they picked Moshe, Aharon, and Chur. Mem Aleph Ches. Now, and that's why Yisroi came and he made Sorei, Meos, Alafim, Chameshim, Mem Aleph Ches. Because he knew it came from Avoin, Asarois. Now, men are Mavatel, the head of the Klipa, the women are Mavatel, the end of the Klipa. So the men, Moshe, Aaron, and Chur, they're Mavatel, the head of the Klipa, which is Mem, Aleph, Ches, Mashches, Af, and Chema. Miriam, on the other hand, is Mavatel, the end of the Klipa. The end of the Klipa of Mashches is a Taf, Af is a Pei, Chema is a Hey, Hatoif. That's why Miriam takes Hatoif. The men knock off the head, Ata Tishuven Rosh, V'hi Tishvenu Akev. Says Reb Shamshon Me'ash Shapoli. Now, comes the Ben Ish Chai, and the Ben Ish Chai says we have two letters in the Hebrew alphabet that refer to Limud HaTorah. the Aleph, Aleph Lamed Pei, and the Lamed, Lamed Mem Daled. Aleph means to learn, Lamed means to learn. The Aleph and the Lamed, they get us out of every mess. So let's say God's throne is incomplete. Case, you throw in the Aleph, it becomes Kisei. Or you have a mess, a dead body, you throw in a Aleph, it becomes MS. You have Dam, blood, you throw in an Aleph, he becomes a person. The Aleph gets you out of every mess. Literally, you could have a mess, and you bring him alive with an Aleph. You could have Dam, you bring it back to life with an Aleph. You could have Case, you revivify it with Kisei. The Lamed could also do that. For example, you have Chema, anger. You throw in a Lamed, you have Chemla, mercy. You have Af, anger. You throw in a Lamed, Aleph, to learn. The Lamed, learning Torah, gets you out of every predicament. That's why it says, Lo yisoisifu. Literally it means don't add to the Torah. But Loi, the letters Aleph and Lamed, add. Loi, Lamed, Aleph, add to the Torah. Always add the Lamed and the Aleph. Turn Chema into Chemla. Turn Af into Aleph. Turn Mes into Adam. Turn Dam into Adam. Turn Case into Kisei. And then Veloi Sigru Mimenu. Sometimes you want to take away the Aleph Lamed. We know that the Samach Mem, his full name is Samach Mem Aleph Lamed, he nourishes from the Aleph Lamed. But if you would remove the Aleph Lamed from the Samach Mem, he would wither away. So, Loi Soisifu. You need to always add the Lamed and the Aleph. But to the Samach Mem, Veloi Sigru. Remove the Lamed Aleph from the Samach Mem. But Rabbi Sai, we now come back to the Purim story. So you say, Rabbi Glatstein, you didn't lay in any psukim from Megillas Esther today. All right, fine. If you really ask. Remember this pasuk? Ba chodesh harishonu chodesh Nisan b'shna shtei mesrei lamelech Achashverosh hipil pur hu hagoyrol lifnei Haman. The goyrol before Haman. That's a very interesting expression. The goyrol that's before Haman. And Chazal say that we were saved from the Haman in the Zechus of Torah. Furthermore, Chazal say that the Goyrol fell out on Haman. Comes the holy Ben Ish Chai. Hu ha-Goyrol lifnei Haman. Take the letters before Haman. The letters before Haman. Daled is before Hey. Lamed is before Mem. Mem is before Nun. Lamed! Lifnei Haman! You know why Haman was being successful in destroying Klal Yisrael? Because we slackened off in learning Torah. Lifnei Haman, because of the letters that appear before Haman. Before the letters Haman, Hey Mem Nun, are Lamed Mem Daled. That's a remes as a Ben Ish Chai. To Limud Torah, that will ultimately help us overcome Haman. And it's a remes to the idea that because we were slackening off and we were mach in Limud Torah, that's why Haman was successful in attacking us. And comes Rabbi Avram Falaji, the great son of Rabbi Chaim Falaji. We had the zechus to be at his kever in Izmir a short while ago. He says, when the pasuk says, Ufnei Haman chafu V'hamelech sham Iginas habisan el beis Mishtei hayayin V'haman noifel Ala mita shar selev V'ayir hamelech Hagam lichboish es hamalka Imi baboyis hadavar Yatzami pi hamelech Ufnei Haman chafu. The letters that appear before Haman, they were embarrassed. Meaning we embarrassed Haman because we were nischazek in the letters that appear before Haman. Namely, Lamed, Mem, Nun. And that's why there's a big tough in Vatichtov Esther to be merames to the greatness of the Torah. Comes Rabbi Yaakov Yafeh, one of the great Rabbanim of Izmir. And he says, why do we refer to the poverty in the times of Purim as Mach? Why not Oni, Evyoin, Dal? He explains that, based on what we learned, the Lamed represents Limud HaTorah, and the reason why in the word Melech, king, there's a Lamed, is because a Melech's koyach and a Melech's grandeur and the power of a king comes from Limud HaTorah. Otherwise, Mach! Otherwise, he's just poor. He has no capacity, he has no power. And when we were weak in learning Torah, we rendered the Melech HaOlam Mach. And therefore, we say, Ba'erev Yolin Bechi, that by drinking the wine at Achashverosh's party, we were Chayiv Misa. But in order to do tshuva, we had to add the lamed, and we transformed the yayin into Yolin. Mav Rabbi Sai comes the Holy Chida, again, on his Yoima Dihilula. And the Chida says an outstanding thing. Vayashlichem. He said that the reason why there's a big lamed is to indicate that why is there af in the world? It's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu casts us away when we abandon the big lamed, Limud HaTorah. Says the Holy Chida, Zechusa Yogein Oleinu, that if you take out the lamed from the word Vayashlichem, you know what you have left? 376. Esav! With Vayashlichem, when you take out the lamed, you have the sin of Esav, the Chaf Mem Yud, that's Ayin, and the Vav of Esav. Without Limud HaTorah, Kozman She'ein Kol Yaakov Mitzavtzafim B'Tiknesias B'Tamid Rashos, then Yesh Yadayim Lidei Esav. And that is why if you look in B'Shalach, says the Rabbi Avram ben Agra, how many letters in the Pasuk? Vayomer ki yad kesyah milchama l'Adonai ba'amalek midayer dayer. There are 30 letters, of course, to indicate that when we are slackening off in the lamed, then Esav rears his ugly head. The brother of the Gra, the Malas HaTorah, he brings, why do Chazal darshan on the pasuk Hakol Kol Yaakov v'Hayadayim Yidei Esav? Chazal darshan something that's against the pasuk. Chazal darshan, when the voice of Yaakov is heard, then the hands of Esav are powerless. But that's not what the pasuk says. It says Hakol Kol Yaakov v'Hayadayim Yidei Esav. Literally, the pasuk seems to be saying, when the voice of Yaakov is heard, then the Esav does have Yadayim. So the Malas HaTorah says an astounding thing, a really powerful idea. He brings, Bizman Shehakol Kol Yaakov, when the voice of Yaakov is heard, then we co-opt the Yedei Esav, and the Yedei Esav become ours, and then Esav cannot overpower us, because his Yadayim have then been given over to the Jewish people to be Mizgaber. Kozman Shehakol Shel Yaakov Mitzavtzafin Bevat exists. You know why? V'hayadayim Yidei Esav. Because the Yadayim Yidei Esav then go over and they move over to Yaakov Avinu. So now we have two amazing teachings of the Ben Ish Chai. Do you remember the Gemara? The Gemara says that Haman was a barber. I got a very chashuv shalachmanas yesterday about Haman's barber shop. It's very good to get shalachmanas before Purim, because on Purim there's no time to eat it. But before Purim there's a lot of time, and nobody knows. On Purim, other people know about it, so they could share with you. But before Purim, no one else is home, and it's much better. But we know that Haman was a barber for 22 years. And he gave Mordechai a haircut. And Mordechai was supposed to ride on the horse. And Haman said, get up on the horse. And Mordechai said, I can't, I'm too weak. So Haman said, what do you want me to do? Mordechai said, get down on the floor and I'll climb up on you. And Mordechai climbed up on Haman and he gave him a kick. Some say he gave him a kick in the face. Some say in the shin. There are different opinions. but he gave him a nice kick. So Haman said, what do you mean? Doesn't it say b'nefalei v'achal tismach? And Mordechai said, no, that's only by a Jew, but by you it says v'yata b'masei moitzidraich. What's the idea that Mordechai stepped on Haman? Why did he step on top of Haman? Says the Ben Ish Chai, because Mordechai knew that in the times of Purim, it's Be'al Tzatayim, Yimach HaMakareh, we were lackadaisical in Limud HaTorah. We weakened in Limud HaTorah, we slackened in Limud HaTorah. And therefore, when there's no Lamed, then Vayashlichem, the big Lamed, when we don't have that big Lamed, Esav comes, the Oisios Esav that are left in Vayashlichem, and we're left with Af. And then the Yedei Esav have their hands. And the only way we could overcome them is we put the Lamed back in Mach, and Hamelech comes back into the Megillah, and we need to go back to the letters above Haman. What letters are above Haman? Lamed, Mem, Dalet. So Mordechai stepping on Haman was a remez to the idea that Klal Yisrael had successfully climbed back to their pedestal of old, and they took the letters Hey, Mem, Nun, and they made it Lamed, Mem, Dalet. Comes the Ben Yehoyada Masechet Megillah Daf Tesvav, and he says, now I understand why Chazal say, Kol ha'oimer davar b'shem amrai, mevi geula la'olam. Remember, we learned from the Ben Ish Chai earlier that the Lamed gets you out of every mess. So you could have, or the Aleph. So if you're in Goylef, you're in Golos, so you stick in an Aleph, you have geula. Somebody who takes other people's Torah and says it over in their own name, are they learning Lishma? Clearly not. They're learning is just gaiva. If they're stealing other people's Torah and pawning it off as their own, their learning is just gaiva. But if you learn Lishma, that's real learning. How do we know if somebody learns Lishma? If they're willing to give credit to other people. They're willing to credit where they heard the Devar Torah from. So if you have the midah of gaiva and you truly are learning Lishma, what letter represents real, authentic, genuine Limud HaTorah? Lamed. If you have gaiva and you put the Lamed in gaiva, mevi geula la'olam. Says the Ben Ish Chai, that's why ha'omer davar b'shem amroi, mevi geula la'olam, because you are obliterating midas ha'gaiva, and by injecting the Lamed, you transform gaiva into geula, umevi geula la'olam. And therefore we have a beautiful statement of the Chida in the Sefer, Leiv David. I told you that after the Holocaust, there were no Sfarim for the survivors. My grandfather published the very first Sfarim in the DP camps for the survivors. The first Sfarim he published were the Even Shlema of the Gra, and the Leiv David for the Chida. So since today is the Chida's yard site, and we're reading for the Sefer Leiv David, I'm going to show you the original Leiv David that was published for the survivors after the Holocaust. Published in army green. Here we have it. This is the first Sefer published for the survivors in 1945. You have over here the American Joint Distribution Committee in the American Army green. I want to read to you from the Leiv David of the Chida. He says, Uve'enai hadavar pashin, in my eyes it's obvious. Shem kol Yisrael hayoim hazeh, that if all Israel today, Asher zera Amalek latevach yuval, on this day of Purim that we slaughtered Amalek, v'nafal Haman haraz, and Haman fell. Roish mi beis Rasha, the head of the wicked regime. Hayu noyagim b'seder kedusha, if the Jewish people would accord themselves in great holiness. Uvesimcha haisa mekudeshes l'shamayim, and they would rejoice in sanctified simcha. V'yeser hayoim oiskim b'Torah, and the rest of Purim, they would be oisek in Torah. There's no mitzvah to drive around for 5 hours to give out shalach manos on Purim. You give out 2 shalach manos, a couple more, very nice. The rest of the day, one is oisek in Torah according to your amount. In this char, hayinu nigolim geulas Oilam. It is obvious the Geula would come. V'yimcha zechar Amalek. And Amalek will be destroyed. Ki hayoim hazeh, on this day, asher hachel linpal, that they began to fall, v'nafal mehem, and many of them fell. Heinam Yisrael, then behold the Jewish people. Im hayinu mis'amtzim b'Torah. If we would strengthen ourselves with Torah, u'mitzvahs kayom hazeh, ra tavoy aleim l'zar Amalek. Evil would befall Amalek, ad kaloi somaisar, until we would destroy them. Uval Tzion goyel. And especially the majority of Klal Yisrael give a lot of tzedakah. Imamele Torah. By the way, who do you give tzedakah to on Purim? Tzedakah should go to those who learn Torah and to the impoverished. Ubeinonim ashrecha Yisrael. Kama meos nesunim heima lemitzvos u'ashad dibarti. Through limud Torah and through tzedakah, will be a kapara, will be mevatok zeres rais, will speed in our redemption, and through our avoida, ein safek shahaisa mapalas amalek gemura. There is no doubt that if we would all be mechazek in limud Torah and tzedakah, v'tifra yasha geula shalema, the salvation and the final redemption would certainly come. May that be the case. B'mhera v'yameinu, amen. Wishing everybody a freilich and Purim. Thank you very much. Bracha v'atzlacha. And if you find yourself,
Shiur on Wednesday?
there'll be a brief shiur on Wednesday. Okay. Okay. Chag sameach, a freilich and Purim. Kol tov, everyone. Be well. Okay. Be well. Chag sameach. Kol tov, everyone. Bye bye. Shkayach.
You are the last party in the conference.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.